Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be with you today. Thank you so much for being here. I know many of you got up early because you had to, and it's mandatory for most of you. So anyway, thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. It's fun to be with you. I did this 3 years ago, I think, with Ethics Week. I came and spoke and had a wonderful time with you until I got out of the session and didn't realize there was a reporter in the back of the room at the time, and I had made a little joke about a politician and got in big trouble afterwards. So the good news is I know that we have many members of the media here today. Hi guys, thanks for coming. And I know they're here because of the topic, and it's really interesting. When I was first asked to speak, this was several weeks ago. And they said the topic is responding to white supremacy, the role of public officials in facing extremism. And I thought, sure, what could go wrong? I mean, that's an easy topic, right? Not controversial at all. And I'm sure it won't be a big deal. And things are settling down anyway after Charlottesville, and that'll be fine. And then this weekend happened, right? And I woke up Monday morning and looked at my schedule for the week and thought I've made a huge mistake. And Monday afternoon, I got a message from my assistant saying, all of the media is going to be there. They want to hear what you have to say on this topic. So here we are, and we're going to talk now. I know you're used to a lot of lecturing. This is not going to be that. So I apologize if you came to hear a 45-minute lecture. I'm sure you were looking forward to that. We're not going to do that today. This is going to be much more of a class. It's going to be a back and forth. We're gonna talk together. I want to listen to you. I hope you'll listen to me a little bit. I want to push back. I want to challenge you a little bit to think outside maybe the way you're thinking right now. And if I'm successful at the end of this, every one of you will feel offended at some level. So we'll see how we do. So let's start with the topic, right? Really, this is pretty easy when it comes to responding to white supremacy, the role of officials in facing extremism. I've already responded to that, and I was grateful for that opportunity that I had to respond after Charlottesville. I was able to speak to a crowd on the steps of the Capitol and talk about my feelings when it comes to the actions of white supremacists and others. And the response isn't that there are good people on both sides. I don't know if that's what you were expecting me to say, but the response is that it's evil and it's wrong, and we should stop it now. There is no place in the public square or public discourse for white supremacy. Period. End of statement. Done. I could be done. I've covered the topic, but I have 45 minutes left to cover. So I'm anticipating that we need to have a little bit more of a conversation than just that. So let's start there. Let's just do this. Let's talk about the NFL, right? Anybody see that throw Tom Brady made to Cooks at the end of that game? It was incredible, right? It was just amazing. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to the NFL? I don't know who these people behind me are, but I heard them talking about it before we started. I don't think you can get away from talking about this kind of stuff. It was interesting, somebody on Twitter this morning said, I can't imagine what first dates are like today. Like, really, it's two choices. Either you pretend like everything's great in the world on your first date, or you talk about nuclear holocaust and racism, right? That's it. Those are the choices you have, right, to talk about. So the good news is that when I was in college, I had all the answers. I knew everything, and I was sure about the world and how it should work and my place in the world. And the truth is that the older I get and the longer I serve in this position, the less sure I get about things and about the world and about where we are and where we're headed. But I'm really interested to hear from you. So let's kind of set the stage a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about politicians today, and what we do. So I will tell you that Politics 101 says never accept an invitation to talk on this subject. Period. All right, never do that. I should not have done that, and there's a reason for that. This topic is what we consider a no-win topic. It's pretty ingrained, and especially not on the white supremacy side, but on the NFL side. You're either a kneeler or you're a stander, right? There's no middle ground there. You have to choose. You have to pick one or the other. It's a binary choice. And anything someone says on this topic is going to offend one side or the other. And probably, if you don't take a strong stand on kneeling or standing, you're probably going to offend everybody. Right, that's the risk you run. So the truth of the matter is, I should not even be broaching this topic today, and yet we're going to spend 45 minutes talking about it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why that is, why public officials are pretty wary to weigh in, or why they're really anxious to weigh in on one side or the other, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about that. In fact, let's just start there. Before we get into the merits of what's happening out there, let's talk about the state of politics today. Even the word politician sounds kind of dirty, right? It's not a great thing. I never just a little backstory. I didn't run to be lieutenant governor. So what happened was I had moved my family back. I went to work for a big law firm in Salt Lake City, found out I didn't like attorneys very much, which is a bad thing to do when you are one. And so I got a chance to move my family back to the small town where I grew up in Fairview, which is about an hour south of here, right in the middle of the state. Beautiful area, 1,200 people in the town where I grew up. And I'm sixth generation there. I'm now raising my kids on the same farm that my great-great-great-grandfather settled over 160 years ago. So we don't get out much where we're from. And after I moved back, I was on the city council, and I was a mayor and a county commissioner. And then I got elected to the House of Representatives, and I was. Those are all part-time jobs, by the way, here in the state of Utah. And I was only there for 9 months when our lieutenant governor resigned, and I'd gotten to be friends with him. He was a great guy, and he resigned not in shame. He resigned just because he was getting close to retirement age and needed to go back into the private sector before he retired for good. And out of nowhere, I got asked to be the lieutenant governor. I didn't even know the governor knew who I was, but I got a chance to meet with him, and after a week or so, he asked me to be the lieutenant governor. So I came at this a little different. I didn't run a big campaign and make a whole bunch of promises to people if they would vote for me. I just woke up one day, and I was the lieutenant governor. Now, the good news is that because I didn't make a lot of promises, I see the world maybe a little differently than some do, because I didn't really want this job. In fact, I almost said no. It was really hard decision for our family. I have 4 kids. My youngest little girl was 6 at the time. She's now 10. And I knew it would be really hard. I knew I wasn't going to move to Salt Lake. It was really important that we continue to live where we live. And so I commute. It's 100 miles from my front door to the Capitol and 100 miles back, and I commute that just about every day. So not the greatest, commute in the world. And it was a big cut in pay. And suddenly I'm a full-time politician. This is my job now, right? Not something I'd ever really wanted or considered or even looked forward to. So the good news is I have a much better life outside of politics, and so if I get fired, I'm really cool with that. So that's a little different, maybe, than some others. So let's talk about that a little. Why are politicians the way politicians are? Help me out here. I know you have thoughts. They want to get reelected. Okay, they want to get reelected. Let's talk about that a little bit. So. When this country was founded, right? Let's talk about George Washington, right? We all love George Washington. Pretty much, that's a non-controversial statement. And one of the amazing things about George Washington, and if you didn't know this from history, hopefully you know it from at least Hamilton the musical, right? Which, by the way, I finally got to see last week, and it's incredible. You should all see it. And George Washington could have stayed as president forever. In fact, pretty much everyone, except for a couple people that wanted to be president, wanted him to stay forever. And after 2 terms, he said, "No, I'm done." He walked away. He went back to his farm. Now, we take that for granted a little bit today, I think, but that was incredible at the time. Like, that never happened. Someone voluntarily giving up power just didn't happen anywhere in the world, in history. There are almost no examples of that, and yet he did it willingly. And he did it to kind of set the bar, set the example for the country, that this is what we're going to do. And the idea was that these would not be lifetime jobs, that these would be, you would get in, you would serve, you would get out and move on. That's changed a little bit over time. Of course, we made it part of our Constitution with the president, so the president can only follow his example. But certainly in Congress and in other elected offices now, people routinely serve for much, much longer than 8 years or 12 years or 20 years or 30 years. Or even in the state of Utah, we have a senator who's been serving for over 40 years now in the U.S. Senate. Okay, so here's the thing: if you can't see life outside of elected office, let me back up. If you define yourself by the office you hold, and you can't see yourself as anything else, then the only thing that matters is getting reelected, right? That's all that matters, okay? So how does this play out? How do you get reelected in this country? You campaign. Okay, but who do you campaign to? Okay, you play to your base, all right? You play to your base. What? I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of different views in this room, in this state. Why does playing to your base, why does that matter? They're likely to vote. Okay, that's critical. Okay, it's critical. So there's 2 things that we have to look at here. The first thing we have to look at is who votes, right? So we have to look at who shows up to vote. That is absolutely critical to this. And when you look at who shows up to vote, the answer is not very many of us, okay? And when you break down those of us that do vote routinely, often, participate the most, what do those people look like? And I don't mean physically. I mean emotionally and otherwise. Who shows up? Okay, extremists. Okay, so people who are the most passionate about stuff, right, show up. The second thing we need to look at, besides who shows up just to vote, we can do that. So we can look at November and see who shows up. And but even more important than that is what is the system in which people get nominated to be on the ballot in November? Even before we get to who votes, the process also matters. All right? I'm saying that as if it's a foregone conclusion, but I'm going to ask you, why does the process matter? Why does the process matter when it comes to how politicians run and who gets to actually be on the ballot? Any thoughts on the process? Okay, so the process determines your options, and can the process, can a change in process change the options? Yeah, you can. And so I always encourage people, one of the problems we have in our country today is that it's very confusing how we elect people. And it's even more confusing here in the state of Utah. We now probably have the most confusing system for nominating candidates to get on the ballot. And I could spend the entire hour just talking about this, but as people that I hope care, you should pay attention to how we nominate candidates in the state of Utah. And there is a law out there called SB 54 that was a compromise, and it was an effort to change. Let me back up. So the way we, and I'll try to do this quickly, but the way we nominated people in the state of Utah for many years and decades is a caucus convention system. Okay, so you have a system. What happens is on a random Tuesday night in March, we hold neighborhood caucuses for Republicans and Democrats, and the days may be different. Sometimes they're the same time. Sometimes they're different. Sometimes it's a Saturday for Democrats, but for Republicans, it's usually a Tuesday night in March, and you show up to a neighborhood meeting. And in that meeting, you vote for people to represent your neighborhoods, your district. Okay? And those people are called delegates. And what happens is those people then become the representatives for you, and the politicians who want to run for office go and campaign to just those delegates. And then those delegates all get together in a big convention in April and or May, and they vote on who gets to be the Republican or the Democrat, who gets to represent the Republican or the Democrats. And it's a little different in every county, but statewide for Republicans, and I think it's the same for Democrats, if you get 60% of those delegates, you're the nominee, period. End of story. Okay? That's it. That's it. If you get 60%, you're on the ballot in November as a Republican, okay? So if I get 60%, I'm on the ballot. I don't have to have a primary. The rest of the Republicans in the state, 700,000 of them, don't have to vote. And by the way, at the state convention, so if you're running for governor, there's 4,000 delegates. Now, not all of them will show up, but about 4,000. Statewide, there are about 725,000 Republicans, okay? So 4,000 people show up, and if 60% of them agree, okay, then the other 725,000 Republicans don't get to vote because they're representing them. If nobody gets 60%, then the top two go onto a primary, and then the other 725,000 Republicans get to vote. And it's the same for other parties by and large. Okay, so that's how it used to work for a long time. Okay. Now, I want you to think about what we just talked about. Process matters, okay? So now you don't have to campaign to 725,000 people, okay? You only have to campaign to 4,000 if you're running for state office. By the way, it's much, much less if you're running for some of the other offices. So if you're, I just want to point this out. If you're in a House district that covers more than one county, like I was, when I was in the House, I covered Sanpete and Juab counties, then the state delegates get to go vote for you. And there are county delegates too, but so these are just state delegates. So I represented about 38,000 people in my district. And I had 54 delegates that I had to campaign to. And I only needed 60% of them, and 2 of them didn't show up to the convention. So I think I needed, I'm not very good at math, I think it was about 33 people that I needed. So if I could convince 33 people to vote for me, that meant that, by the way, there were no Democrats running in my district. So all I needed were 33 people to vote for me, and I was automatically the representative of 38,000 people. That's amazing, right? Does that sound like a good idea? I'll leave that up to you to decide. All right. So here's the upshot of that, though. Who are the delegates? Who's most likely to show up on a random Tuesday in March to meetings that routinely last 3 or 4 hours, and where people argue incessantly about Robert's Rules of Orders and the agenda, and they fight about stuff? Who's most likely to love that crap? Okay? All right, here it is. People who are really, really, really passionate, okay? And maybe some people who are extremists, okay? So, now, there's a really good argument that that's a good way to do it. That we, because these people who are really passionate about this, you know what they do? They spend time with the candidates. You can't just send these people a glossy flyer and a great ad and expect them to vote for you. You know what they expect? They expect you to come to their house. They expect you to sit down in their living room. They expect you to answer questions for an hour just them one-on-one, they vet you. They vet the hell out of you, all right? They want to know everything about you. Is that a good thing? Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I mean, the wealthiest person who can just produce the best ads is still going to have to run through the gauntlet, right, to do that. That's a very positive thing. Now, what's the downside of that, right? Do those really, really, really passionate people truly represent the 725,000 other Republicans? Well, we were able to kind of find that out just recently, if they did. We had a couple interesting experiences. One was the governor and I, we ran last year, and we ran for, we run as a team, as a ticket here in the state of Utah. It's different in every state with the governor and lieutenant governor. Here we follow the president-vice president model where you run as a ticket. In other states, they run separately. But we ran together, and we went to the convention, and we lost 55 to 45. Okay, we lost by 10 points. Now, still nobody got 60%, and there's another caveat that I'll explain in just a second. But we made it on the ballot, and we went to the primary where the other 725,000 Republicans got to vote, and we won. And we didn't just win by a little bit; we won by 44 points. I mean, we lost by 10 to the most passionate, the delegates. And we won by 44 when the rest of the group got to weigh in. We saw it again just recently, and you get to hear from Mayor John Curtis, who just joined us. I'm the warm-up act for John, and he had a very similar experience. He got beat pretty soundly at convention, and won going away in a primary. So we've learned that there is some sort of disconnect between this process where the delegates are supposed to represent everybody in their party and end up representing a fairly extreme faction. Okay, so that matters. But here's the thing. Now going back to this, if I'm a politician in that scenario, and all I care about is getting reelected, then what is my message going to be, and what is my record going to be? Who am I going to be talking to? Who am I going to be campaigning to? Not just my base, but probably the most passionate part of my base, right? Where does that lead us as a nation when everybody's trying to get reelected and only representing the most passionate part of their base? Where does that lead us? Where are we? Any thoughts? What do you see when you look at Congress today? See a bunch of practical problem solvers? Okay, there's an extreme lack of cooperation. What do we call that? Partisanship. Yeah, partisanship. So how extreme is the partisanship right now? Well, let me give you some data, okay? And I need you. This is going to be hard. You're going to have to stick with me. You're going to have to focus. I promise we'll talk about the NFL. I'm not stalling just to get out of this. All right. This is where we're headed next. Okay. If you look at Congress, and let's just take the House of Representatives. All right. This will be great. How many members of the House do we have in Congress? Anybody know the number? 435. Very good. 435. Thank you. Okay. 435 members of Congress. Now, I want you to picture political science. I was a political science grad. How many political science folks do we have in here? Any poli-sci folks? All right. Got a couple. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. Political science. We like to pretend like we're real scientists sometimes, so stick with me, all right? So there are ways that you can determine how conservative or how liberal someone is. You just look at their voting record, and then you can start to rank them. And the cool thing is we can do this over eras of time. So we can compare a member of Congress today with a member of Congress 60 years ago, all right? So think of it. This is kind of like, if you're a sports person, this is kind of advanced metrics, right? We're comparing the advanced metrics for members of Congress today versus members of Congress in the past, and then you can rank them. So if we were going to graph them here, okay? So we have a linear here graph, and we're going to put the most liberal person on the left and the most conservative person on the right. Okay, you with me? And then we're going to chart them on this graph from liberal to conservative. Every member of Congress, all 435 of them, okay? And we're going to do two different ones. We're going to do one for Republicans, and we're going to do one for Democrats, okay, at the bottom. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have, so we have the most conservative Republican here and the most liberal Republican here. So imagine a Republican elected in California who's going to vote mostly like a Democrat, but still a Republican. Okay, so you with me? We got him here. Now we're going to do the same thing for Democrats, all right? So we're going to have the most liberal Democrat here. So you've got, these are your California Democrats, right? And the most conservative Democrat here. So think somebody like Congressman Matheson from Utah a few years ago. He was a Democrat, but he was from a red state, voted with Republicans most of the time, so he's going to be here. Okay, so you with me? Now we're going to take these two lines and we're going to merge them together, all right? You still with me? Okay, you're following here? Now, we're going to take the most liberal Republican over here and the most conservative Democrat here. And we're going to draw two lines right here, okay? And then we're going to look at everybody in the middle, everybody between those two, right? What would we call that, all those people? Confused? Maybe? I'm going to call these the moderates or the middle, okay? These are the people. This is where stuff gets done, right here, right? So over history, this is where laws get passed, things get fixed, stuff happens, okay? And then you have your extremists out here, right? Your extremely conservative Republicans, extremely liberal Democrats over here, where stuff doesn't get done. If you look at that over time now, you look at that group in the middle, it's really fascinating. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but generally I do. So back in the 70s, that group in the middle, there were about 320 plus, somewhere in there. Yeah, I'm just throwing out a number. It was a lot that fell in that area. In the 80s, it started coming down. It was about 200 and in the mid-200s, okay? In the 90s, it went down even further, so 150, somewhere in there. We're in the middle. Stuff's still getting done. I think it was last year were the latest numbers I saw. Anybody care to guess how many in the middle? 8. Yeah, 8. So what that says to me is, and it shows, again, all the data shows this, we become more polarized, right? More partisan. The extremes are getting further and further apart, okay? So here we are. Okay, that's all we needed to talk about there. So now let's talk about what happened. My hope here today is, so last night I had a cool experience. And I sat down with my kids. My oldest is gone. He graduated last year. He's serving a mission for our church. He's in Mozambique, Africa right now. So he's far away. My other three, I have a 16-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy, 10-year-old girl. And we hadn't talked about this much in our house. And then I noticed that both of my sons, my 14 and 16-year-old, had gone on social media, on Facebook, and posted their feelings about the NFL controversy. And I thought, okay, we probably need to sit down and talk about this a little bit. So we sat down last night as a family, and usually these things last like 5 minutes and then we're done. But they really wanted to talk. Even my 10-year-old daughter really wanted to talk about this. And so we made them spend, we didn't make them, I mean, they wanted to, but we spent about 20 minutes trying to understand the position of the kneelers, people that are kneeling, trying to understand what they were trying to accomplish and why they were trying to accomplish it, and really working through that. And then we spent another 20 minutes trying to understand the standers, the people that were upset with the kneelers, and what they were thinking and what their reason and rationale was, and really trying to get into their heads and understand what was happening there. And it was really amazing to see them kind of work through these feelings and these issues. I'm not going to tell you where they started or where they came out because they're kids. But I do want to hear more about your thoughts. So and again, I'm gonna push back a little bit on both sides. But I'm assuming I'm not going to make y'all raise your hands, but I'm assuming we've got some kneelers in the room, some people that are pretty passionate about their feelings towards those that decided to kneel. So let's talk about kneeling. Why on earth were they kneeling? Any thoughts? Why are people kneeling? All right, this is where I need you guys. So we have a microphone there too that we can pass around.
Thanks. I've been really interested in this topic as well, because I am from California, and so the culture's a lot different. So I make sure that I really look up into the things that I'm talking about. So I got excited today. But I was reading a lot of the things, and an interview straight from the original kneeler. He was talking about how he did it because of the unfairness within the Black community, and a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement and is involved with that. And he wanted to make a point. He wanted to say, hey, like, I'm not feeling equal, and this is my right to kneel here and be able to protest this. And he just wanted to make his point, and I think it was definitely made. Like, if it wasn't liked, sure, but people are definitely talking about it.
Okay, so we have Colin Kaepernick, quarterback for San Francisco 49ers, who used to be a good quarterback and then started being a really, really terrible quarterback, and gets benched, gets set on the bench, cameras pan to him, and he's sitting on the bench during the national anthem. And afterwards he's asked about it, and he says, social injustice, right? Cop killings, police brutality was a big piece of that. Inequality, representing my community, and I just feel like we can do better as a country. And this is his way of standing up and standing out. And so after that, actually, I believe it was a veteran who said, that's really disrespectful to just sit on the bench like that. And he decides that he's going to kneel instead. Okay, so that happens, and then some others start doing it, and there's every team has one or two kind of throughout the year. Anything else? Any other reasons? So is that why, like, more than half of teams were kneeling on Sunday, was to protest social injustice and police brutality? They were upset that Trump swore at them. And I'll try to repeat your answer so we can make sure and get it on the video too if we don't get the mic to you. Okay, so they were upset that Trump swore at them. So Trump goes to a rally in Alabama, right? And Trump has talked about this before. This is not a surprise. But Trump, in the heat of the moment, in the passion of his speech, calls them SOBs, right? He gets up there and says, you fire these SOBs, right? Okay, so really fascinating, guys. I read an article, I swear, just a week ago that said that the protests were dying out, and then in the next couple of weeks, nobody would be kneeling. And now, like, everybody's kneeling, right? So this was President Trump, and what he managed to do was unify the NFL, which I think he did overplay his hand just a little bit there. I don't think he expected owners to be out there linking arms with players and the NFL coming together. But that's what happens, and this is important when we talk about dialogue, and you're going to hear more from Mayor Curtis about how we dialogue later. But if you're trying to change someone's opinion, does attacking them or calling them names ever work? Has anybody ever seen that work? Okay, so and by the way, I think President Trump knows that. Okay, was he trying to change anyone's mind at all about the protesters and trying to convince them not to kneel anymore? I don't think so. Was he trying to unite the country and rally around the flag? What was he trying to do? Why in calling them SOBs, of all the issues, we've got hurricanes, we've got people dying in Puerto Rico, we've got a crazy dictator in North Korea who believes that we've declared war on him through Twitter and is threatening nuclear holocaust, and President Trump goes all in on the NFL. Why? He's campaigning. Who's he campaigning to? His base, right? Yeah, the people that elected him. Okay. And diabolically brilliant, right? He's put himself on the side of the flag. Because what did he say they were protesting? He said they were protesting the anthem and the flag, and by extension, our country, right? They're protesting the anthem and the flag of the country. Okay, so what's the problem with the protest? Is there a problem with the protest and the manner of protesting? Is there a problem at all? Yeah, back here. We got a mic coming. Let's get the mic over here.
It's drawing more attention to the protest and less to the issue.
Okay, so one of the issues with the protest is it's drawing issues to the protest more than the issue they were trying to highlight. One of the problems I believe, and I agree with that, with this type of protest is there's not a clear line between what they're doing and what they're protesting. Does that make sense? When you see somebody not stand for the flag, you don't immediately think, oh, police brutality, right? Historically, when people have protested the flag, what have they been protesting? War, yeah. War and the military, or, and again, just the United States in general. But yeah, mostly war and the military. And so when the way you protest doesn't connect directly with the thing you're protesting, then it becomes easy for other people to define what you're protesting, and especially easy if you're the president of the United States, to say these guys don't love our country, they're not patriotic, they don't care about the flag, and people die for the flag, right? Okay, that makes it problematic. It's not a great time. Now, I went to I'm a big rock and roll fan, and the band that I loved most growing up was U2. Now, you probably have really strong feelings about U2 and don't like them because that's a millennial thing to do now, but they were really great, and they still are really great, I promise. Even if they did give you free music on your iPod once and everybody lost their mind. Really good people. So here's the thing. They're touring right now, touring the world, playing their hits from their greatest album, The Joshua Tree, which was an album when I was in high school. And I wanted to see U2 on this tour more than anything. I've seen them a couple times, but this was the one. Kind of their last one. They're getting older now. And so we looked all over the country, which show could I go to? They're not coming here. Had meetings in Chicago last week and thought, oh, wow, they're playing in St. Louis on Saturday. I have meetings on Monday in Chicago. It's only a 4-hour drive. We're going to fly into St. Louis. We're going to watch U2 play. It's going to be amazing. So my wife and I, as we're boarding the plane to St. Louis, I get a text from a friend said, did you see the news? No. U2's been canceled in St. Louis. And does anybody know why U2 was canceled in St. Louis? Anybody know? There were riots in St. Louis. Yes, there were riots in St. Louis. Does anybody know what they were rioting over? Okay, police officer who was found innocent in the shooting of a black man. That was it. So, same issue, right? That Colin Kaepernick started. I can tell you, and again, rioting not cool, but the peaceful protests that were going on, everyone knew in St. Louis what those protests were about, right? There was a clear distinction, delineation. Everybody that had U2 tickets was really upset, but we all knew why, what was happening. I promise you that 90% of the people that are upset with the kneelers have no idea what they're kneeling for. They think they're kneeling as a protest to the anthem and the flag and maybe military. And that's the prevailing wisdom. What's the other problem that the protesters are facing? And it has something to do with kind of who they are and what they represent. Any thoughts on that? Why it's so easy to dismiss it? Okay. So people are saying that sports shouldn't be political, and a corollary to that is that these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, and quite frankly, NFL players don't have a great reputation, right? The NFL has been deeply criticized for domestic abuse. Domestic violence, a lot of criminal activity that has happened, and so it becomes really easy to dismiss the messengers as these guys are spoiled. They're making millions of dollars. We're paying their salaries. They should protest on their own time. Sports is supposed to be a release. Sports is supposed to be our way out. Okay, that's some of the criticisms that we're hearing, right? Whether you think they're valid or not, they're real. Those are criticisms. Okay, so what are the standards? And we talked a little bit about this, but why are the standards so passionate? Why do they feel so strongly about this? And maybe I'm assuming we have some standards here too. Again, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but why are the standards so passionate about this? Please. Okay, so mostly it's out of respect for those who have served our country, those who have died for our country, and again, if they don't know why they're kneeling anyway, they feel very threatened by that, and they feel very passionate about it. How many of you have ever been to a funeral service for someone who was killed in action? Any of you ever been to one in the war? Yeah, I went to one just a few weeks ago. We lost a special forces soldier from the state of Utah, small town of Monticello, and who died in Afghanistan in a house that was booby-trapped, blew up, killed him, injured 11 others. I went down to that funeral, and I spent time with his mom and dad, all of his sister and a bunch of brothers. I think there were 8 kids in the family, and his fiance that he left behind. Devastating, like rip your heart out, devastating. And when we went to the cemetery with the family, and those salutes, those rifles went off, and they folded those flags up and handed those to the mom and to the fiance, I mean, you just can't keep it together. You just lose it. And you leave there thinking, I'm so proud of our country, and I'm so proud of these young men and women that put themselves in harm's way and sacrificed their lives for the things that we believe in. And that flag represented him. The flag lays across the casket, and that flag was folded and will be treasured by this family for generations to come. And I sobbed, and the next time I got a chance to put my hand on my heart and to pledge allegiance and to sing the national anthem, I mean, I pledged harder than I've ever pledged before, and I sang harder than I've ever sung before, and I just thought, man, I love this country. So yeah, I can see that. I can see why people feel so passionate about that. I had a friend who said the very same thing, who said, if these people, if they'd ever been to one of these funerals, they would know you just don't kneel. You never kneel. And then I asked him a question. I said, have you ever been to a funeral where an unarmed black person was shot by a white cop? I haven't. I've never been to one. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine if it was a family member how they would feel, and what their reaction would be. So again, I'm just pushing back a little bit. My hope is we all come to the table with our own life experiences. We can't change that, right? You are who you are in large part because of where you grew up. You grew up in California. I grew up in Fairview, all right? Worlds apart. I mean, it's crazy. I wouldn't last a week in LA, and you probably wouldn't last a week on my farm, all right? It's just not going to happen, and that's okay. That's okay. But what we can do is we can start to recognize the glasses we wear. We can start to recognize our own life experiences. And then we can try as hard as we can to think about others and their life experiences and what they've gone through, and try to at least understand why they're doing what they're doing, even if we adamantly disagree with it. We can try to figure out why it is they're doing what they're doing and what it means to them. I will say one of the interesting things about this protest is it stopped being a protest about inequality. It didn't stop being that. Let me take that back. For many people that knelt on Sunday, they weren't protesting inequality. What they were protesting was their freedom of speech. One of the things that what happened with President Trump, I think, did was, instead of making this about inequality in the flag, it made it about people's ability to express unpopular opinions. I think a little bit historically about when John Adams represented the British soldiers, okay, in a court of law, okay? So nobody would represent these British soldiers. And he said, look, I hate everything about what they did, but they deserve representation. Okay, so there's something in our country, this belief that these freedoms, that we can't take them for granted, and that if you take away this freedom from someone else, then eventually you can take it away from me. So even if I disagree with you, I'm going to stand up for your right to do what you're doing. Okay, so there is a little bit of that I think that we've come through. Now, look, politicians have been doing this for a long time. President Obama was more subtle about it, but make no mistake, he was very committed to dividing and to feeding his base what his base wanted. Okay, when he talked about people clinging to their guns and religion, he was talking about me. You know, that's me. I cling to my guns and my religion. And he was just more subtle about it, okay? President Trump has kind of weaponized it in a way that we haven't seen, where most politicians and presidents say they're uniters while they're dividing, behind the scenes. This president pretty much admits it, at least he's just kind of openly trying to divide us. And that worries me. That concerns me. I don't think it's good for us. I don't think it's healthy as a nation. I just want to conclude with this, though. There are different levels to this idea of self-awareness, this idea of learning about others and trying to see through their eyes and trying to be empathetic or compassionate and seeing the world differently. The first level, I guess, is we don't see it. Maybe we only empathize with those that are like us. So we're very tribal as a country, which concerns me. And maybe I only empathize with my own tribe. Right? I can only see things, feel things that people like me are feeling or seeing. That's kind of level one, and a lot of people are at that level. Level two is I start to empathize with people that are different than me, people that are maybe historically have been oppressed or treated unfairly or wrongly. And that's a great step for all of us to make, that feeling where we start to look. So again, I'm in a room of a lot of white people, okay? And we have some in here who we do have some multicultural friends in here. And I can't imagine what that might be. Well, I can't imagine a little bit. I lived in Mexico for 2 years, so I have a little bit of a feeling what it's like to be kind of the only white guy around. But it's different, and you come from different backgrounds and different cultures. And so trying to understand outside of our tribe a little bit is really a great step. But here's the problem. So many of us get to that phase, and then we stop, okay? We think we've made it. We start to think like we're better than other people because I care about social justice now. I'm a white Mormon male, and I care about people that are different than me, okay? I've made it, okay? And now, whatever. And that's a great step. I'm not downgrading that step at all. It's critical. We should all get there. But I want you to realize there's a third step, and not many people make it there. And that's, once you get there, can you look at the people that didn't get where you are, and can you care about them? Can you still love them? Okay? So, you're not a racist now, okay? You love all cultures. You care about other people. You even marched down the street once for them, whatever. You donated some money. Good job, okay? That's good. That's important. But can you turn back? can you still try to love and understand those who haven't gotten where you were, who maybe were where you were before 10 years ago? By the way, anybody know when President Obama, how long ago that he started to support same-sex marriage? Yeah, it was 5 years ago is all. That's it. 5 years ago. Yeah. And it may take people a little longer to get where you're going, but wherever it is you're going or you're headed, calling people names and acting like we're better than them will never change any hearts and minds, no matter what it is you believe in. The way we do this is by listening and understanding, even to people we think are wrong and that may be morally wrong. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them. I'm not saying that at all. You don't have to agree with them. But you will be better when it comes to your own discussions and your own feelings if you sit down and learn from the other side. I want to leave you as we end with a quote. This is from Judge Learned Hand. By the way, just a great name. We should name more people learned. Although I fear like in Utah, we would spell it like LYNRD or something. And so maybe not. But here's what Judge Learned Hand. We talk about liberty in this country, right? And when I say liberty, you conjure up something else. For many of us, liberty is like, an eagle soaring through the air with an M16. And, it's just freedom, right? This is a big deal. Learned Hand had a little bit different take on liberty, and one that I think is important. He said this: the spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is a spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. All right, let me repeat that one more time for you. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. It's my hope, if nothing else, that our takeaway from this weekend is that we will take time to learn and understand the thoughts and feelings of other men and women, and not be so sure that we're right until we look through those other glasses. People ask me, where do I stand on all of this? And I've managed to make it through without letting any of you know my feelings whatsoever. So I think my job is done here. But let me just end with this. I will stand and I will salute the flag until my feet bleed. But I am so grateful that we live in a country where people don't have to if they don't choose to. And I hope that we'll learn to love each other, that we'll learn to work together, and that we'll find ways to make it so everyone will want to stand up and salute the flag. Thank you.